been there forever. And then it's surprising that they're still sort of young.
Yeah.
It was a great interview that you did with them, and I know they appreciated that. So, all right, we are live.
Well, she was so.
Oh. She's great. All the booksellers are great. I'm chatting with Gail Godwin about her favorite bookstore, Oblong Books, that we're still fawning over, even though we talked to them on Wednesday. Welcome to Mighty Blaze. I am Jenna Blum. I am the co-founder, and I'm an author on my time off from the Blaze. Today, I have the immense privilege of chatting with Gail Godwin, who I'm sure you hear this all the time, Gail, but like you need no introduction and then people introduce you anyway. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Gail's newest novel came out on Tuesday, on Cinco de Mayo. It's called Old Love Good Girls. And I'm going to ask her all about that. But meanwhile, Gail is the best-selling author of more than a dozen critically acclaimed books, a 3-time National Book Award finalist, the recipient of a Guggenheim National Endowment of the Arts grant in fiction and libretto writing, which I'm so fascinated by, the award in literature from the American Academy of Arts and Letters. And Ron Charles said of Old Love Good Girls that it is a richly layered novel based on a lifetime of reflection on friendship and storytelling. And if you will permit me, Gail, I have to just fangirl on this Ron Charles interview because Ron Charles, and B, it's you. And I love this, the review that he did of the book. He wrote, "One is tempted to speak in hushed valedictorian tones about when talking about Gail Godwin. She has been publishing novels for half a century. At the Iowa Writers Workshop, one of her teachers was Kurt Vonnegut, and she's been a finalist for the National Book Award 3 times. But the trouble with Godwin is that she won't coast. She's still challenging herself and us." And I loved that because personally, as a writer, I think one of the great things about it is that there's no shelf life, right? So I intend to keep writing until I'm 102 years old. You can start in your 50s and be just as successful as if you started in your 20s, right? So I would love to get your thoughts about all of this. But first, will you please tell us a little bit about Old Love Good Girls? Tell us what the book is about.
It's about a special kind of school, a school not unlike one I went to once. And that school was called Peace College. And it was strict, and we had lots of time to be alone, and we had high standards. And I made such good grades there. And I wrote a story about it a couple of years ago, and that was published in the Iowa Review, but the place still haunted me. It's a beautiful school. It's bigger now. But I didn't want to write about myself and my roommates because I'd already done that. And I wanted to try something that I'd wanted to do for a long time, which was write about 2 women, 2 writers who meet, who learn to write at the same time, and then who are separated, and the different ways they go about their lives. One is a tobacco farmer, a very successful daughter of a tobacco farmer, and the other is a girl who comes from a home of horrors. And the best thing that happened was that the dean and the dormitory mistress roomed them together. So they had 2 months to be together before the tobacco girl's parents were killed in a crash, and she had to go home and run the company. And there are times when they don't meet for 10 years, but there's this connection, and it's the kind of friendship that you think about, you dream about it, and it changes you.
I love this. I know that in my reading about the novel that it is about a friendship that spans over 40 years. And I feel as though friendship is an underwritten thing in fiction, that we read a lot about love in the romantic sense and in the filial sense and in the parental sense, but we don't often read enough about the love between friends, and those friendships can be so lifelong and so nurturing and sustaining. Did you have a certain friend in mind when you wrote this? Do you have friends from your school that still haunts you in your imagination?
I have some. The two in the book, Meredith and Farron, they're deeper parts of my soul, I guess. But I had one good friend through elementary school, grammar school, most of high school. And we were, what they have a word for it now, frenemies. We were frenemies. And but she died. She died at 50 of skin cancer, and I was with her a lot. And there's a bit in my book, but I'm not going to tell you which one dies. And now I have another friend that I've known since second grade, and we have always been in touch, both in school, and then we went our separate ways, and then we wrote letters. They're such good letters. I with her permission, I gave them to my archives at Chapel Hill. They're really something special. And now she said she just wanted to stop. She didn't want to go shopping. She couldn't breathe. So she checked herself into a nursing home. And she's being a real sport about it. And we're still close.
I feel as though our friends, like our siblings, are the people who accompany us throughout our entire lives in a way that our spouses even can't. So you have a friend behind you, you have a cat behind
That's true.
you.
Oh, hey.
Yeah. Who is that?
And there was one other thing. There was one other reason I wanted to try this book. I've seen two movies in my life. One was in 1943 called Acquaintance, with Betty Davis and Miriam Hopkins, and it was about two writers. And Betty Davis was a serious one. She started first, and she had a serious reputation. And Miriam Hopkins had her family and her social life. And then her friend comes home and she gets so jealous and she thinks, I can do that. And so she sits down and writes, please go somewhere else. And she sits down and writes and becomes this huge success. Now, it was remade in the 80s with Candice Bergen as, it was called Rich and Famous. So Candice Bergen was the rich best-selling one, and Jacqueline Bisset was the serious one. And I wanted to do one like that, but I didn't want to have such a dichotomy. I wanted to write a book about real friends who last, who change each other, who help each other's souls grow, which sometimes happens. And so I did.
I love that. One of the things that I find true about my very long friendships is that you can lose touch for several years. I've fallen out of touch with my friends for 10 years, 15 years. And then when you get back together, it's as though no time has passed at all and you reconnect with that person. Do you think that's true for you and for your characters in Old Love Good Girls?
Yes, especially in Old Love Good Girls. One of the girls says, she says, you can never lose me because we're in the same reference aura, which means you've been in a place where you've made these memories and you've done these things, and they'll always be around you like a bubble, and you can pick them out of the air anytime.
I love that. I think That's true. I went to high school with a friend I lost touch with for years and then reconnected 20 years later in a restaurant in the village. And she scolded me for being
Really?
out of touch and said, "You were a jerk." And I said, "I was a jerk." And we just picked up the friendship and reknitted it. So it's such a gift, these friendships. Now, your friends in the novel have secrets from each other. At one point, Meredith, Mary in the novel says, "Everyone has secrets no one else should know." And as a writer, I seem to be drawn to writing about secrecy, what makes people keep them, how they break them, how they work around them. Do you think that people have secrets that no one else should know, or should they be disclosed more?
More and more, I feel that we have certain secrets that we should just keep to ourselves. I mean, they're our little friends and our little enemies and our little demons and our little angels, but they don't travel well into other souls. So I'm becoming more secretive, but I'm becoming more truthful. These last few years, I've really put a high premium on people who tell the truth. So more secrecy, more truth.
That's such an interesting, I love this conversation. It's an interesting contradiction because I also have my little secrets. They're like pets, which is now how I'm gonna think of them. And
Yeah.
every time I don't disclose what I'm gonna say, I'll think, but Gail said it was okay. I don't have to tell all my secrets to everybody. How do you reconcile keeping your pets close to you and also being more truthful at the same time? Is it like if somebody just asks you directly about a secret, you'll disclose it, or how, in what ways are you feeling more truthful?
Well, my sister is a great artist at this. I've asked her about 2 personal secrets in my life that I shouldn't have asked her. And both times she smiles and says, "I don't remember."
I have heard that a lot. My mom was a great, I don't remember.
That's a code. That's a code.
It's totally, it's like the Southern lady code. No, I don't remember. Bless your heart. I just don't remember. It means I am never, ever telling you.
Bless your heart. Yeah.
Right?
Bless your heart is not always a compliment.
Oh, never, basically.
Bless her heart.
Bless her heart. She doesn't
Where,
remember.
where are you from?
I'm not from the South. I'm
Where?
from New Jersey, so I'm a Yankee. But I had friends who would say "bless your heart," and then I thought they were being nice to me until 20 years later, somebody clued me into the fact that they were really saying, "Boy, you're stupid." So now I know this. You poor thing, basically is what that means. But I do think that saying, "Oh, I don't remember," but that sort of sweet smile is really saying, like, I'm just not going to tell you. I'm keeping those secret pets, right? Like, so that's, it's really interesting. How do you, over such a rich and multifaceted career, how do you maintain your inspiration? Do you ever feel like you have the infamous writer's block? Do you write every day?
It has become a real part of my life. When I was younger, at the writer's workshop, for instance, I was still in that mode where I had to make myself have a schedule and go there every day. But now I miss it if I don't do it. It's become, I'm unhappy if I'm not writing.
Do you get cranky unhappy or sad unhappy if you're not writing?
Oh, wistfully unhappy, just wistful.
Oh, you are
something to write.
You are a wonderfully sweet soul, Gail. When I'm not writing, I get irritable. And one of my first words was irritate, except I said inchitate. I get inchitated if I'm not writing.
Mm-hmm.
When do you mind me asking about your process? I'm always interested in this. What time of day do you write now? Do you get up and go right to the desk? Do you work longhand? Do you work with a computer?
Well, it's changed a lot. I mostly write in bed, like Edith Wharton did. And I mostly, when I'm in bed, I write by hand in a notebook. The other thing, the most wonderful thing that's happened is with this book, before I start a scene, I draw a picture of the people, the place, what's going to happen. I think I have about 1,000 of them now. In fact, on the card cover, there's the cover. Can you see it?
I can, yes.
And this, okay, this is the frontispiece that I did. That's of them two when they're older.
So we can, if you hold it up a tiny bit more right in front of your face, we'll be able to see it. I'm sorry to ask you to hide your own face, but hold it up a little more. Oh, yes, yes.
That's
oh,
okay.
That's beautiful. Oh my gosh. So is that pencil or pen, or is it pastels?
Oh, thanks. I'm so glad you asked. It's watercolor pencils. I was afraid of using watercolor for years because I had no control. But the pencils, you kind of sketch out what you want, or you sketch out a background, you lay in colors. And then what really got me going, you take a Kleenex or a tissue, as I should say, and you kind of dab it in the wet spots. And then you look to see if you see anything. And I'm thinking about my book, and I usually did. I saw one yesterday of these 3 little girls and their caretaker, this woman who's come to visit with them and teach them. And then a helicopter flying off, and they're all watching it. And I had no idea when I sat down to draw that I was going to do that. So I have my next scene. This is a late in life gift. I'm thankful for it, and I love it.
That is so amazing. It's like an invocation with invisible ink, where you write something on the page and it blooms into a scene. That is fantastic. Did you always draw? Was it, I know you said that this was a later in life, newly developed ritual, but did you always draw? I know your artistry goes in various directions.
I always drew. In school, we had a very good art teacher. And in my teens, I was trying to decide whether I wanted to be a painter or a writer. And somehow, maybe I was influenced, it became clear to me that I could make a better living if I were a writer. So I pursued that. I went to journalism school, and then I went back to school later and got a PhD in literature. But I began to be a writer. And it's only these last few years, when I've been so agitated about the way the world is going, that I got to the point where I was so mad one day that I couldn't speak, and I just started drawing again.
Well, I love that your response to the state of the world is not actually, drinking wine and going on Twitter like some of us, and maybe drunk tweeting at people, but instead is an artistic response. I think this is a beautiful thing. Do you have other writing rituals now, in addition to reclining in a queen-like way, as I imagine it, in bed, and drawing and your scenes into action? What other writing rituals do you have?
I used to have a great one when Robert was alive, and we were both drinkers. I wrote a book about it. It's called Evenings at 5. It's a little book. And it was a ritual for both of us because he was a composer. And at 5 o'clock, we would stop work and go downstairs, and I would have my Bombay Safflower, and he would have his Scotch. And we would talk about our work, and sometimes we would talk about our bad reviews and see who had the worst in life. And he won. He used to win all the time because he had great ones. He had one from the Boston Globe, which said, "Boredom swept over the audience when Robert Starr's piece began to play." boredom swept over the audience. I've had some good ones too.
What?
I mean, bad ones.
I remember my own bad reviews as if they were etched upon me, and my own good reviews I can barely remember at all. I don't know what that is, but do you remember what one of your favorite bad reviews was? Like your one you took most umbrage with, or that amused you most?
Gail Godwin hits us over the head with something in the book. Gail Godwin hits us over the head with, I guess that means I was too forceful.
I guess you were violent, Gail.
No, one more. This one was bad. It started off, I hate them when they start off bad, because then that's over. This one started off, Gail Godwin is a good writer, but The Good Husband is not a good book.
Painful.
But you're too young, and you're too young to have started getting these bad things.
Oh, that's so kind of you, but I actually just have a lot of makeup on. I'm not actually that young. I have my favorite bad review was somebody who wrote about my first book that it was the most disgusting book she had ever read. And I sort of cherished that. I think to inspire such an irate response in a reader, I must have touched a chord somewhere. And to me, that's better than indifference. But maybe that's why we remember the bad reviews. The only bad reviews that really, really sting me are maybe the ones that I think are true, where they, hit on some writer insecurity that I was trying to sneak under the radar in the novel. Do you have any of your books that you wish you could go back and tinker with now?
No, but I have one that when I make enough money or get enough money, I'm going to buy back from the publisher because they changed the title. The title was supposed to be The Red Nun. It was a perfect title. And they talked me out of it because they said nobody wanted to read a book about nuns. And so I called it, or they called it, Unfinished Desires, which sounds more like a bodice ripper.
It does a bit.
So I would like to get that. I would like to get that book and choose the cover, change the title, and who knows, it might happen. It might happen.
Maybe it will be reissued as The Red Nun, in your wishes. This is something that is so fascinating to people who don't always know this. Writers don't always have a choice in their cover art. Do you have a say in your cover art? And if so, is your visual artistry and your longtime work in that, does that affect your choice of the cover art?
Yes, I after some very bad covers, my late agent, John Hawkins, put it in my contract that I always had to okay the cover. And since then, like with Old Love Good Girls, I said I wanted, can you see it?
Yes, it's a beautiful cover, that sort of golden hour light on the cover.
It was
so gorgeous.
Yeah, I just said I wanted, I actually sent them a picture of Peace College in Raleigh, North Carolina. It has those columns. And I said, I want something that looks like an old established school. And that's all. But they put this lovely fall coloring around it.
It's a gorgeous, sort of nostalgic, warm cover that I think hints at
it looks like fall. Mm-hmm.
It does.
Looks like fall.
It does. So,
mm-hmm.
Are you happy with that cover then?
Totally. They sent me three choices. That one, I'm forgetting the other. And then the third one was, the second one was, they've used it as the spine, actually. Kind of a rough material, like a tweed, kind of a school. And the third one was not bad, but it was not good. It was two girls. And I don't like people in the covers because then you think they look like that.
I have
So
exactly
I
the
just went
same.
with that one.
Sorry, go ahead.
Do you?
I do, because
Yeah, you don't want them to.
Go ahead, please.
No, I finished.
Oh, all right then. No, I don't want to dictate to the reader what the character looks like, except through words. And then if the person on the cover doesn't match the way you describe the character, readers rightfully get indignant and say, that is not what she looked like. The picture in the reader's head is so powerful, right? So,
And that's so important. You could write a whole essay on that about how writers have addressed that problem.
You could write that essay and do it beautifully. I would just write it indignantly, I'm sure. Are you able to write now during this strange time that we're in? I know that you had talked about art in response to the state of the world. Are you able to write during the pandemic?
I am, because my schedule hasn't changed all that much. I've spent most of my days alone at home writing. The only thing that's changed is I never used to watch TV, and I watch the cable shows and the news, and I get madder and madder. And that's what started me drawing.
Well, then I guess there's a silver lining for the news if it started you drawing, but otherwise it's hard. May I ask? And I'm on my own also. I work alone and live alone. And as a writer, sometimes I feel people say, do you get lonely? And I always have so many people up here that I don't feel lonely. But then sometimes when I, have closed the laptop for the day, I do feel a little lonely. Do you get lonely when you're writing or when you're done writing for the day? Sometimes?
I get lonely for the way things were with Robert. That end of the day, come down. But I'd rather be alone than be with a lot of people that I could be with. Does that sound too grumpy?
No, not at all. I think it sounds really honest. I would rather be with people I really love or by myself with my characters, which is the same thing, right? That I fall in love with my characters and I would love to spend time with them, but you have to enjoy your own company too to be a writer, I think. Do you find that true?
Oh yeah. And so little goes so far when you meet somebody or even see somebody in a movie. You learn more about human beings just by the way they present themselves. I was going to ask you something, but I can't remember. Something to do with your writing.
Well, if it comes,
I can't understand why that reviewer said it was disgusting. Wasn't that the book about the girl who finds out about her mother?
Oh my gosh, you've read one of my books. I'm so glad I'm even sitting down right now. But yes,
I looked you up and I thought, oh, I want to read that book. I mean, that's quite a story to.
Thank you.
Send me one.
I would be so honored to. Thank you so much. As soon as I close my laptop, I'm going to send it immediately. And
what is it called?
My first book is
What's it called?
It's called Those Who Save Us, and it is a mother-daughter story. But the reason people don't like it is it has a lot of sex in it, and so sometimes people find this to be a really disgusting thing, which is obviously something I don't agree with. So, and your face says maybe you don't either.
It's the way you present it.
It has to be organic to character, right? But I don't want to hijack this conversation about me.
No, okay.
Everybody wants to know about
So what are we going to do next?
Well, now I'm going to ask you some questions from your admiring audience who has been watching. And since we were talking about a book that you are going to read, thank you so much. People would like to know what you're reading right now.
I'm not going to read it now. I'm not
Oh,
going to
no.
read it now.
What
right?
are you reading now, though? Are you
Okay.
reading something you like now?
No, I mean, I'm not going to read it aloud on this program.
Oh, of course
Or
not. No, no,
am
no.
I?
No. Are you reading any fiction now that you especially like? Are you reading any books now that you can recommend for people?
Oh, yes. I'm right at the moment. What suits me is I'm reading Anthony Trollop. And this particular one is Framley Parsonage, which is not like it sounds. It's got some clergy in it. There's one who gambles and there's some social snobbery, and it's just what I feel like reading at the moment.
Do you think, why do you feel like reading Trollop at the moment? What appeals to you about Trollop at this moment in time?
Actually, I wrote a blog about it a few weeks ago, gailgodwin.com. Trollop wrote this very mean and uncharacteristic for him book. It was called, may have been this last book, The Way We Live Now. And it came about, he had come back from traveling. He was in his 50s. He came back from traveling in Australia and New Zealand. And he came back to London and he suddenly saw it as so corrupt and nobody told the truth. And he just sat down and wrote this mean little book. Big book, actually, it's huge. So it was perfect for that week. And then I realized how well he does people and the whole social scene, whether it's Parliament or fox hunting or balls or anything. So I'm trapped with him again. I also write things that have just come out. Right.
Do you have something that just came out that you especially like?
Yeah. Emily St. John Mandel's The Glass Hotel.
That is at the top of my TBR stack. I read her Station 11 and I loved it. And I was thinking while you were talking about it, did you? And ironically, it was one of my pandemic primers, so that when we did have the pandemic hit, I felt better prepared because of Emily St. John Mandel's Station 11. So I find that in this time, reading fiction is both an escape into a different time and a comfort when it bounces our own time back to us, which it sounds like the Trollop definitely does. Do you find that to be true also in what you're reading?
And yes, the other book I read when this pandemic started was Albert Camus' The Plague. Mm-hmm. And it's a very lovely book. It's about how you discover who you are when you're in a plague. I mean, what do you do? How do you act? I recommend it. The Plague.
And easy to remember, right? The title. Do you feel that the plague that we're living in at the moment, and I've been calling it that at the risk of feeling melodramatic, but it is a plague. Do you think it has taught you anything about yourself and also affected your writing in any way?
It has taught me a lot about the goodness of people. I mean, there's a lot of disgusting badness about people, but you see the most generous offers just popping up here and there. You see people getting together. I just watched them on television. There was a man who owned a nursing home, and he was thinking, how am I going to keep the plague out? And so he decided just nobody goes out. no nurses go home, and I don't go home. And he got some trailers and parked them around the home, and they all just stayed there for a month or so, and it helped. I mean, the thing about something that challenges you like this, like the play, you think of ways to make life easier for yourself and for others, like what you're doing with A Mighty Blaze. I just can't tell you how I admire that. It's just, and you had a friend who had children, and he called them the Mighty Boys. Is that right?
Yes, my friend Stephen, whose book Stephen Kiernan is releasing a book in August. It was supposed to be the same pub date as yours, and I know he had been writing in his basement for 3 years, working on this particular book, and his reward at the end of it was to go out into the world and meet readers. And then his tour got canceled.
Oh.
And so we were talking about this, and my response to crisis, unlike yours, which is to make art, mine is to get indignant. And so I was saying to Stephen very indignantly, we have to do something about this to connect you with your readers.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, books seem like such small things in such a dark time, but maybe if we put all those books together in one place, we can make a blaze to attract readers. And he said, a mighty blaze, like my mighty boys. And I said, yes, a mighty blaze, like your mighty boys. So that's where that came from. It was just writers helping writers.
It's a great title, and it you know, it goes in sync with Easter Eve, when everyone lights a candle from just one, and then there's two, and then the whole place fills with light. And that's what we're doing.
I love that, Gail. Thank you so much. I could talk to you all day. I have one more question. Like, that was such a beautiful thing to say. I barely even dare step on it with another question. But you have an audience question about your essay about Dark Place, which is one of the great pieces about storytelling itself. Do you feel that your own relationship to Dark Place has changed, and your relationship to storytelling? How do you think about that piece now?
That's a good question. I am much more willing to interact with the Dark Place than I was previously. And also, like William Blake's Angels, I know I'm wise enough to know that I have to tie myself to a tree or something before I look down into that darkness. You don't just go in and look, because you might not get back. But I'm fascinated with darkness, because it's the other side of light, and it gives richness, and it may even need our help.
How so? Darkness needs our help? Can you explain that a little more?
I think so. Oh, the old myths where the king of the underground comes up and kidnaps Persephone because he wants something down there that's light. And her mother wants her to come home at least sometime during the year. And he says to Persephone, you can come home half the year, go home half the year, if you don't eat any of the pomegranates. Of course she does. And so her mother grieves because she can't come home now. So her mother turns the earth into summer and winter. It's that kind of thing. He needed her. I would imagine dark places with dark people in them really want company and appreciation, but you have to be careful.
That is beautiful. I'm mentally writing that down. Thank you for saying that. Do you think all stories need dark places in them as well?
It's funny. I'm attracted to stories where I know I can expect some darkness. Yes. Yes.
I think so too. Otherwise, if we were all writing about sweetness and light, the books would not be very interesting, right? You need the
And they wouldn't be true to life either.
right,
They
because we
wouldn't be
have our
true to
summer
life.
and our winter and our darkness and our light.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
kept us amazing company in a dark time, bringing your light into this conversation. I can't tell you like how delightful it is to talk to you, which is not something you can always say about somebody who has such a hollowed, legendary reputation. I think you are just a joy. Is there anything that you'd like to say to your readers before I relinquish you to your art in your afternoon?
I'd like to say to you once more that what you're doing with this mighty blaze is also bringing light to the darkness. So I hope it takes off in a wonderful way, even after, God willing, this thing lifts. It's just a good thing. For me, it's good because I don't have to travel, and we'll get better at this. We'll all get better at this. If I go on doing it, I'm going to have some technicians come over and do things and make it smooth.
We will come and help you.
All right.
Our Blaze will
Okay.
pull up and we'll come and help you with all the tech. Once we learn it, we're still figuring it out.
Can't wait to see the van. I can see what's painted on the van.
Yeah, flame.
Of course, a blaze.
Right?
With
Flame.
something in the background. Something dark in the background.
Absolutely. A big demon,
Okay.
flames vanquishing the demon. Yes. I kind of feel like that's what writing is about, and it is because it reflects life, and that's what you hope life is, right? Like you hope life is something that is light that beats back a darkness consistently. Those things are always there. But I feel so inspired by this conversation. I have been a bit hijacking it, but with my own thoughts, but I can't tell you how much I appreciate talking with you today. I'm going to do another plug for your book, which is Old Love Good Girls. I am so excited that it's out in the world now. I want all you readers to buy it for yourselves, buy it for your moms, buy it for your daughters, buy it for your husbands and your sons and brothers. And if you are so inclined, you can buy it from Gail's favorite bookstore, indie bookstore, which is Oblong Books in Rhinebeck, New York. We just talked to them on Wednesday. So bookstores need your light now as well. And Gail, that's about it. Thank you so much. And I'm gonna go, jump in my Blazemobile and come right down and hang out with you and have tea.
Come do it. Yeah.
I will.
This is better than shaking hands anyway, isn't it?
So much.
Maybe we'll do that.
So much.
Yeah.
So much. I love it.
And that too. Thank you so much.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you everybody for watching us on The Blaze.